And with us right now, we've got the one, the only David Couper. David, you are an executive coach, and you are the CEO and founder of David Couper Consulting. Now, you're found on the web at David Couper Consulting, but lest we think that we're talking about the British variation of the last name Couper, it's actually Scottish. And so Couper is spelled C-O-U-P-E-R. So David Couper with a U, consulting.com. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So have you actually looked back at, so I don't know if you talked with Elisa, who is our director of operations, shows she's really into genealogy and she's pretty hardcore Scottish.
Oh, really? Okay, great.
To connect.
Yeah, no, I can, one side I can go back to 1720 and then the other side not so far.
Yeah, so, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Where did, so you were originally living, were you in the UK then?
So I've been in the States 25 years. I used to live in London before that. And then I moved to Chicago and then to Los Angeles. Yeah.
What brought you to Chicago?
I work for Accenture, the consulting firm. So just kind of a random thing. There was a recession going on and no work. I was freelance and I get a phone call saying, would you like to work on this project for 3 weeks in Chicago? So it took me like 2 seconds to decide, yes, I would like to do that. And I would like to pay my mortgage. That would be good.
Yeah.
So then that 3 weeks became 6 weeks, became 6 months, became 4 years. And then I moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah. So for the past 20 years, so you've worked primarily with healthcare professionals, leaders, organizations on culture transformation, executive and leadership development, change management, and also, and boy, what a time to be doing what you do, overwhelm and building resilience in systems.
Yeah, right.
So I can't imagine how many people are leaning on your wisdom and experience or things that you've taught them in the past right now.
Right, yeah, so it's really tough for anybody who's in the front line, physician-wise, but what people maybe don't always realize is that not every physician, not every caregiver is crazy busy dealing with what's going on. If you're a surgeon, you might actually be at home just doing consults by telemedicine. So it's kind of different issues going on, but certainly resilience and how you deal with that, unexpected change. Nobody could have predicted this was going to happen at all, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
What do you do? What's going on organizationally within healthcare systems and hospitals and maybe even like smaller healthcare offices? I mean, I know it's just so disparate, right? Some are, it's just kind of, systems are just all over the place.
Right.
And so do you think that, let me ask you this, do you think that a majority, or maybe it's not that many people, had a model for this? Or did they?
I don't think anybody had a model for this. But all the bigger organizations will have a plan for crisis, but this is so unique that I don't think anybody had a plan. So we work with Kaiser Permanente a lot, and I think they're a great system, and they obviously had things in place, but they're still scrambling because everybody is scrambling because the speed that the speed of this happening and the impact of it is just so severe. So.
As you work with leaders in an essential industry, can you maybe just take us through a quick little, like if you were to offer like a kind of a 5-minute executive summary, 3 to 5 minute executive summary of like best practices for leadership in moments of crisis, like what are some of the kind of the tenets of what you want to get across?
Yeah, sure. And so we work a lot with healthcare. We also work with other industries. We work LAX as a client. We work with entertainment companies. So we work with other companies too, but we probably about 80% is healthcare. So I think the first thing is look after yourself. It's that kind of old thing about put your oxygen mask on before you put your kids' ones on. So it's easy to just keep working and not get rest, not take time off. And then you're not really at your peak performance. And then you have to be able to manage your emotions. So it's emotional intelligence. If you're if you're getting upset, and lots of physicians and caregivers are, because they don't know what to do. They're swamped. They don't have protective equipment. The administration is trying to meet their needs, but not necessarily doing that. So you really have to manage your own emotions, because if not, it comes out in anger, things like that. So I'm hearing some people that their stress level is very high. So those are a couple of things to really to think about. And then the other thing is communication. And right now, I think people are so busy, they don't want to do that, but you've got to keep talking to people. How are you doing? What's going on? Explaining things. This is why we can't do this, because I think there's a lot of frustration. And one of my clients with a big system said, all the rules have been thrown out the window. So that was kind of an interesting comment. All the things we used to do have changed. And all the policies and procedures are kind of up in the air now. And that kind of keeps everybody safe by having this framework. So it's interesting. It's an interesting and terrible time to be in.
This is applicable for all leaders, but let's say that organizationally, you're dealing with something very stressful. Say, for example, cash flow. Absolutely. Oh man, listen, I just want, and let me just let you know that if there are other business owners out there and you're struggling with cash flow right now, you are not alone. It's, anytime you have movement up or down or up. And I say up, and most people are like, what? How can you have cash flow issues when you're moving up? Oh, trust me, you will. If you haven't experienced it already. So let's say a CEO founder is dealing with a major stressor. They're worried about how they're going to take care of payroll and all these other issues, and their stress level is at a 9. How do we compartmentalize in a way where we can still communicate with our teams and not, let the impact of that stress, damage those relationships, or, just be very inefficient or ineffective?
Right. So I think, cash flow is a big problem. Certainly I'm looking at that right now. And I understand what you mean about when it goes up, because my business went from 6 figures to 7 figures. And so suddenly I had huge costs, and managing that is interesting. But I think the main thing is, I wouldn't necessarily say keeping things separate, but I think the important thing is to be accepting this is what it is, and not judging yourself, not saying I should have, I'm so stupid, why did I do that? And kind of getting pissed off and blaming, and there's a lot of shame and guilt about not being able to do the things you want to do. All that's kind of normal and human, but it stops you coming up with creative solutions. So if you can say, this is all happening. Maybe I did some stuff in the past was not smart, but I am where I am. Now let's take a deep breath and let's look at what are some ways we could move forward. What are some solutions? What are some different things we haven't thought of before? So I see, it's interesting. I see people doing a couple of things. One is like doing nothing, just watching lots of TV and eating too much and drinking too much. That's okay if that's the way you get through things. Or they're coming up with, I used to have a restaurant, but I could create a cookbook. So I have a friend who's a great chef, has a number of restaurants. She's done a little cookbook. She's just putting that out, making a little money. People coming up with ways to pivot to different industries, to do different things. We're offering coaching at a very reduced price or free for some of our clients. Just that we want to be of service to you, and we're not expecting anything back, but we know that you're struggling. So we'll have a hospital up in the Northwest who's going to be just saying to their physicians, if you want a quick check-in, just get some support, here you go. So I think if you're in fear, it's really hard to come up with anything creative. So it's just taking that deep breath and saying, it is what it is. I haven't done anything wrong. It is, and it's going to be whatever it's going to be. I can't say it's going to be all good, because who knows? But what is your advice then for communicating with your customers or consumers, or your audience that you'd love to be doing more business, but it's maybe a majority of your audience is kind of feeling the pinch, and so they're not participating as readily? What do you do? So what we've been doing, and I know if this is the best or not. You probably know more about this than me, Josh. But what we've been doing is just reaching out to people. Are you okay? How's it going?
Mm-hmm.
Because especially people on the front line are scared about contracting the illness. So we've been asking how you're doing. Is there any way we can help you? And then we've been offering things which are free or very heavily reduced so that we're mindful and not doing kind of a heavy pushing sales, but we don't do that anyway. But really just saying, how are you doing? And can we be of service? And what's interesting, some of my clients have come back and said, thank you so much for that. So that, to me, that works. And then we'll just see where it goes. And we have clients, even in healthcare, doing new business with us. So that was interesting. My assumption was that nobody would want to do anything in hospitals because they're too busy. Mm-hmm. And we're actually working with a couple of hospitals right now. It's new business since the epidemic has happened.
Yeah. So David, how did you, I mean, obviously you do a lot of consulting now. How did you go from working in a corporate environment, and this was back in 97, when you started going independent, how did you make that transition, and how have you grown your practice into a 7-figure organization?
Yeah. Well, getting laid off helps. That was how that's
nothing like a nice shove into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, that's right.
Sink or swim, buddy. There you go.
Yeah, I would like to say it was all strategic, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I got laid off from a job. It was kind of funny. I thought my boss was going to say how great I was doing on this project, and instead he was reading from a piece of paper. His hands were shaking.
Oh.
Like, we're going to have to lay off people because there's
no
money. And but it was a great gift because I ended up going freelance and ended up doing cool projects. And for me, my business grew when I started taking a risk and when I started hiding out, stopped hiding out and kind of some of my fears. Because I'm English, I like to be nice and don't be too pushy and things like that, which is stupid because it's much better to be of service. This is what I have to offer. If you're interested, that's great. If you're not interested, that's okay too. So I really changed my perspective about 8 years ago when I had a personal tragedy, and that really made me say, hey, wake up. Time is limited and go for it. And so then I do have a strategic plan. We focus on healthcare, get to know that. But then I also like serendipity. I like coincidences because you just never know what's going to happen, and just being open to, oh wow, this is just showing up over here.
Are there any unique traits amongst executives in the healthcare industry than, say, like manufacturing or technology or something that maybe it's special considerations, or maybe it's just personality that you see as like, yeah, I see a trend here, and it's really interesting. I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, I think every industry says they're unique, but I really think healthcare is unique.
Yes.
And you have a lot of very smart people. And if you have a lot of leaders who are physicians, and then they tend to be very smart people, but they're used to being right about things because they have to be right in a certain situation when they're giving advice or treating patients. So that can sometimes get in their way. And then the administration and physicians sometimes have a battle about, caring for the patient. Everybody wants to care for the patient, but then how do you do that economically, efficiently, making sure your margins are okay? So I think there are some differences, but what I love about it is that 99% of the people I meet, they really care about the people they're treating. They care about the patient. They want to do a good thing. Whereas, I've worked with a fast food chain. I won't mention which one, but they're not saving lives. Nobody's life's being saved by that. It's great business, but healthcare, that's really happening.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. So in terms of, let's say, a leader, can you maybe share a couple of other ideas on, you suggested maybe just checking in on your customers or potential customers. You do this personally as well, not just, sending email blast. I got to tell you, I think it's a huge missed opportunity for companies that are just showing their concern by sending email blasts and stale, static, we care messages without really connecting and on an individual basis. Now, again, your consumer product, you do what you can do if you've got massive numbers and stuff, but how amazing would that be, if, the founder of a company or CEO of a company said, no, this is really me. You use our product or our service. And I just wanted to reach out to 10 people today personally, just to check in and see how you're doing. Like, could you imagine the impact that would make for those 10 to 20 people? And you can systematize this stuff. It's not going to take you, but if you don't block it off and don't do it, I think it's a huge missed opportunity right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's showing that you care and that you think of them more than a customer. So for sure.
And the same thing for employees as well. Like if you're the CEO, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think the thing with employees is that they're scared about catching the illness. They're scared about that. They're scared for their jobs. And even if we work with a pharmaceutical company, which is doing okay, you don't know what their partners or their roommates or their family are up to. So they may be fine economically. They're working at home. It's maybe even, it's a technology company. It's kind of the same as business as usual. But you don't know, maybe their wife or their spouse or their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever is in some industry and they've just lost their job. I read somebody who was working in a call center and he just got laid off, and he got laid off before, and he's just like devastated. He doesn't know where the next job's going to come from. So checking in with your team to make sure that they're okay, I think is really important. And it's kind of good for the bottom line, because if you don't, they're going to not be productive. They're going to all those sorts of things.
Anything else that a leader who has the tendency to, like, I have to catch myself all the time, and and just saying, because if I have an idea, I do have a point of view as a CEO and the founder of a company. I know I don't have to be right, and in fact, I would love if someone could poke holes in my idea or theory. And sometimes that takes, you got to take your ego and put it on a shelf. And I think that's the goal to get to that point. How else can someone who's a leader, just specifically because you mentioned it from, healthcare leaders, that they're used to being right. And, if they're they have that background. What are some ways that we can kind of catch ourselves from letting our ego get in the way of effective leadership?
Right. So I was coaching somebody yesterday, and I think slowing down and listening not only for what they're saying, but what they're not saying, and not going in with preconceived ideas. So I think from what you're saying about, you have an idea and you like people to poke holes in it. I kind of have this idea that I'm going to be throwing a party, and I want the party to be in the evening, and I love Chinese food, but I don't like Japanese food. And apart from that, you kind of go for it. So I want my team to really be taking that and running with that and being creative. So they're going to come up with some things that maybe I don't like, but we can fine tune that. But as long as I'm giving them the parameters to work within, then I think people can be really creative. And especially right now, I mean, what's great about this time is people can do things that they don't normally do. And that's what's in healthcare is happening a little bit, that people are, breaking some rules and doing things which they didn't normally do in policy. And I think leaders can do that too in other industries.
Yeah. So David, for folks listening to our program, what would be a great resource that maybe you could offer them, or some place that they could kind of go and see the work that you're doing? If there's something where someone can get some immediate value, where can we send them?
If you go to my website and then just contact us, we're happy to give a complimentary coaching session for a leader, just how you deal with whatever is going on, how you keep your people calm in chaos, how you work through stress, how you're resilient. We're happy to do half an hour free coaching with me or with one of my coaches. So if you just go to my website and then just the contact information there, and we'll get back to you. Or through LinkedIn, happy to join you on LinkedIn.
I got to tell you that, someone was listening to our conversation. When you hear an offer like that, please jump on things like that. I could just, let me ask, can I ask your opinion? David, you genuinely do want people to ask for that, and you're willing to help them. And, if it turns into a partnership or doing business together, cool, but it doesn't have to, right?
No, it's not about that. That would be great.
Yeah, sure.
But I coached one of my best clients for a year for free because he was going through a bunch of stuff and he really needed me at that time. And I wanted to help him out.
Yeah.
And so I help out some people and it becomes business, and sometimes it doesn't. It's just kind of whatever works. And people are really hurting, and I'm lucky because I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Which is better than a lot of people. So
right.
Yeah.
I think tragedies like this, and here is kind of one final thought, and I'd love your perspective as we kind of close out. Tragedies like this or big events like this, I think reveal people quite a bit. And I think you see, leaders are either going to rise to the occasion, they're going to start getting real sloppy, or worse, right? And any thoughts on that?
No, I definitely agree. So, I had a tragedy 8 years ago. My partner died and I was left with my son to bring up by myself. And the main problem was I had 100% of the bills and 50% of the income. That doesn't work out that well. Yeah. But that really made me think about, what do I want in life? And I stopped doing some of the things which didn't work for me, and I started doing the things which do work for me. But I really agree that I think you have the opportunity to be your better self or to be your worst self. And it's kind of a choice. And it's a fearful place. And I get that it's scary and you don't know how to do payroll. I've been there. I know how that goes. But being in fear doesn't help you come up with a creative solution. And this can be an opportunity to be a bigger version of yourself, really to step up. And I congratulate you on what you're doing and how much you're giving away. That's amazingly generous. And I think that's the right thing to do.
It is, there's times to, market and sell. And then there's other times like this is not the time to be tricky with people. This is the time to be benevolent, in my opinion. And, it's only through our combined generosity can I think we rise from this. Some people, and it's unfortunate. It's like almost like a tornado. Tornadoes come through and some houses go untouched and others devastation. Yeah. And so this is, coronavirus is kind of like the tornado that's impacting the global economy. And some people are devastated. Other people are like, whew, but now if you, again, David, I appreciate, your contribution. And again, if you're doing okay or better, please find a way to be generous. Now is the time to do that. And so David, I appreciate your offer and I really appreciate your wisdom as well. It's a great conversation. Thank you so much again. So David Couper, again, CEO and founder of David Couper Consulting. And again, that's Couper, David Couper, Couper, on the web, davidcouperconsulting.com. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.